Welcome everyone to the
Wait.
April 7th. Oh,
Hold on one second. Let me make sure that we're.
That was just a practice run.
Justin, do you see it live yet?
Yes, we're waiting for the rest of our attendees to join us.
Okay, Mrs. Sassooni, we're live.
thank you. Welcome to the April 7th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Education. Regrettably, Mrs. Berkowitz is feeling under the weather this evening. I was previously scheduled to address our North Middle School community, so I was also asked this afternoon to chair tonight's meeting. Please bear with me. This is my first such event. I ask your indulgence. Before turning to our Pledge of Allegiance and tonight's meeting, I also note that today's date coincides with a solemn date of Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, where we are called to come to mind and to remember the banality of evil and the lessons of genocide when men are inhumane to other men. Now we ask everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Without further ado, we're going to spotlight Dr. Jerry Kozine, the educational leader at North Middle School. Dr. Kozine.
Good evening, Dr. Prendergast, Mrs. Berkowitz, Mrs. Perez, Mr. Shi, Mrs. Sassooni, Central Office Administrators, parents, students, families, and friends. On behalf of the Richard S. Sherman North Middle School Learning Community, I thank you for honoring North Middle School's exemplary students. At this time, I would like to offer our condolences to the Ashkenazi family for their loss. Mr. Ashkenazi was a remarkable steward of public education, and his influence will be greatly missed. There is no doubt that I would much rather be speaking to our students in our auditorium, seeing their faces and those of their parents as we honored them for their achievements. But alas, this is not the case, so we must Zoom this. And unfortunately, I can't see you all tonight, but I hope that you are smiling as I am. But let's take a moment before I speak for and about our students. I'd like to acknowledge the group of individuals who are honoring North Middle School's recipients. I think it's important to acknowledge the Great Neck Public Schools Board of Education. These committed individuals care deeply about the Great Neck community and tirelessly advocate for the success of all of its students, from our preschoolers to our adult learners. Historically, the Great Neck Public Schools have maintained a sterling reputation, and the Board of Education plays an essential role in providing the environment and resources to provide for this success. So on behalf of North Middle School, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation for all that they do for our students and the Great Neck community. Once again, I was excited to hear that Board of Education trustee, Mrs. Rebecca Sassooni, would be representing the Board of Education this evening. Mrs. Sassooni and I met during my first year as principal of North Middle School, at which time she was a parent of a North Middle School Blazer. For moment one, she supported North Middle and me, and now she supports all of Great Neck students through her service on our Board of Education. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Rebecca Sassooni to speak on behalf of the Board of Education and our students.
Thank you, Dr. Kozine, for that very gracious introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Dr. Prendergast, to Central Administration, Dr. Kozine, Ms. Gunning, Ms. Anderson, and the entire North Middle School community for allowing me this opportunity to share some reflections with you tonight on behalf of myself and my colleagues on the Board of Education. I thank you all for your resilient learning and growth this year. I would like to spend the next few minutes speaking to you about role models, yours and ours. Each of the over 90 students receiving recognition tonight is being singled out and commended, whether it's because your teachers, your administrators, your peers, or you yourself self-nominated to catch yourself doing something good for others' quality of life. I would bet that some of you may not even know specifically what it is that you did for which you are being lauded. If you stop and think about it, I believe this is actually the highest kind of praise. Praise for who you are, for what you did, unattached to any specific benchmark or metric. Tonight, my colleagues and I praise you for who you are. We're also here to praise you and your parents, your guardians, and teachers who raise you to be who you are. And I hope that you will thank them out there in Zoom land. Most days, whether you're signing into your classes, clubs, and activities via Zoom or in person, you're probably not thinking explicitly about receiving recognition or being a role model. But we're here tonight. How did that happen? Because whether you call it being an upstander or a bucket filler or a teammate or simply just being a kind, decent, and honorable human being, each of you fits that bill. For every time you showed up as that being, you helped your school community, your family, and all of us. Not only did you help, but at a very young age, relatively, you became role models for other students and teachers and administrators, and that's what we commend. As for me, I'm a smidge older than you, and I remember being your age. I also remember being a parent of students just like you, who also received this recognition not too long ago. So I pause now, and I encourage you to savor this moment so that you can remember it. And I'll ask you one more thing, not to let it be enough. Commit yourself that this should be the beginning of a lifetime of being a positive role model who cares about others' quality of life. I mentioned at the start our role models, and I will leave you with this. Mr. Donald Ashkenaz of blessed memory was, until his sudden passing last month, my colleague on this Board of Education. Don's exemplary volunteer service to this Board of Education, to the Great Neck Public Schools, as well as his countless philanthropic, professional, and academic organizations, and to our nation as a member of the United States Armed Forces, extends back to when I was just a child. I first came to know of Don and his extraordinary family when I was a high school student through my mother's work on philanthropic organizations with his spouse, Karen Ashkenazi. In meaningful ways, Don's and Karen's unparalleled, peerless legacy of civic duty and philanthropy inspires and informs others' commitments, including my family's and my own. Mr. Ashkenaz served this community over the span of a generation to safeguard your educations and also the educations of your parents' generation. He served with intelligence, humility, and dignity from the bottom of his heart and without self-aggrandizement. Don was also incisive and sharp. He was known to ask what he called provocative questions. Moreover, in an era where it was unpopular, Don was inclusive and open-minded, welcoming of diverse people and opinions. That I, a first-generation American, female Persian Jew, was elected by this community and welcomed by Don, one of my own personal role models, to serve as his colleague remains one of the marvels and honors of my life. On nights like this, Don would say, "We could not be more fortunate. We are blessed." He was fond of referring to our board and the administration of the Great Neck Public Schools as an A team. Tonight, you and I are all part of the legacy of the A team, not just grades of A, but rather A for Ashkenaz. Congratulations to you and your families for being role models too. I hope you keep it up. And I turn the spotlight back to Dr. Kozine and Ms. Anderson and Ms. Gunn.
Thank you, Mrs. Sassooni. It's now your time, our quality of life recipients, our North Middle School veterans. It's a privilege to speak on your behalf. So what brings you to this evening's recognition? What have you done that has set you apart? Why are you here? You were selected for this recognition based upon school and community service and overall school involvement. You have shown yourselves to be strong representatives of the North Middle School family. You have demonstrated commitment to making the world a better place through your altruistic endeavors. You have taken ownership of our school, and through your participation in extracurricular and athletic activities, you have represented North Middle in a positive manner. In today's world, we need you to continue to be involved, to do the right thing. I know that this may come as a shock, but none of us are perfect. So you may face some challenges along the way. You may have some missteps, but it is how you respond to these events that will make a difference. Never lose sight of the power of helping others, bettering your community, and knowing that one person can surely make a difference. From our Wednesday's Words of Wisdom, you know I like a good quote, something that I've heard and believe delivers a strong message. And I had to look no further than the author who will be visiting North Middle later this month. North Middle School is so excited to welcome author Jasmine Warga to North Middle, and I know that you have all read her novel, Other Words from Home. I was struck by something she wrote in her author's note. Quote, "No one ever grows poor from giving. That sharing what you have does not make you any worth any less," end quote. She discussed her book being about the, quote, "ever-growing need for generosity." And generosity is really just another word for love. So let's work on giving more love to others as well as to ourselves, end quote. Indeed, you must all look for opportunities to share. Share of yourselves, your time, your passions. It will only make you and our community stronger. Be generous in all that you do and continue to develop your empathy so that you can be the change you want to see in the world. I know, it's a lot to ask of 13 and 14-year-olds, but sorry, I have to challenge you to do this. And I hope that 3 or 4 years from now, when you are students in North High School, I hear your name again being read by Dr. Holtzman at the North High Quality of Life Awards, where he confirms that you have continued your path as an individual who is making a difference in the world. The past 3 years have flown by, and I truly wish that I could go back to last year and reset the last 13 months. But honestly, I'm just a principal. Regardless of, or perhaps because of, the challenges you faced over the last 3 years, you've all grown. You've shown resilience and adaptability, and we have enjoyed getting to know you and your unique abilities. I look forward to hearing great things about you in the future. But for now, I must just say thank you. Thank you for your involvement in our learning community. Thank you for reminding me of the power of adolescence. And thank you for showing us all the resilience you possess to make the most of the last year. I consider myself fortunate to have shared this journey with you. Congratulations. I work with 2 exceptional administrative colleagues who I'm sure you are familiar with. Ms. Anderson and Ms. Gunning, my co-principals at North Middle School, will follow me in reading the names of our honorees. At this time, Ms. Langell, if you could show the names. Lily Adiashvili, Noah Adut, Jonathan Adut, Joshua Adut, Alex Amir, Jonathan Anavim, Andrew Arias, Aiden Bakshi, Hila Bakshi, Katie Bell, William Benjamin, Jonah Berkowitz, Mitchell Bloom, Samantha Bacor, Dylan Brenner, Dean Campodonico, Aiden Chen, Caressa Chen, Justin Chang, Justin Chen, Andrew Chen, Victoria Cho, Andrew Cohen, Janady Da Silva, Ashley Dong, Ethan Elgaday, Talia Elyahu, Owen Flood, Rachel Gabo, Danielle Gardner, Dylan Glickman, and Nina Goldstein. I'll now turn it over to Ms. Gunning or Ms. Anderson.
Ms. Anderson, Andrew Goodstein, Jacob Gruder, Jaden Hagani, Leah Hakimian, Audrey Hahn, Nicole Haruni, Jaden Hedvat, Andrew Hirschbein, Kylie Hoffman, Katie Huang, Benjamin Ejadi, Maytal Imani, Kayla Kahan, Donya Kadanian, Eden Kashanian, Neve Kashi, Antonio Kawai, Celine Kani, Leona Kahinsea, Isabel Ku, Valerie Lan, Max Lee, Michael Leung, Jacob Levine, Ashley Liu, Ian Liu, Elizabeth Madelon, Gabriella Mayer, Emmeline Miranda, Abigail Monasabian, Jade Nabavian, Aiden Name. And now Ms. Gunning.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Riley Yang, Claire Yang, Gabriel Nyhan, Daniela Nassim, Jessica Ong, Catherine Park, Alexa Petruzza, Doreen Rehanian, Gabriella Sadagati, Abriel Schnatz, Eliza Schulman, Dahlia Segal, Rebecca Slobin,
Adam Smolevics, Tomas Smolevics, Liam Sophie, Jackson Sutherland, Chanel Turani, Xing Yi Shai, Lucas Turovsky, Phoenix Wang, Joy Wei, Emma Wen, Colin Wu, Isaac Yan, Logan Yi, Morgan Yusian, Michael Zakin, Xing Xuan Zhu, and Sharon Zakaria. Well done, boys and girls. And now back to Dr. Kozine.
Congratulations, North Middle School Quality of Life recipients. At this time, I would usually ask you to turn around in the auditorium and congratulate your parents. So when this Zoom meeting is over, give them a hug. Thank them for all that they've done for you. Hopefully they're hugging you as well because you've done some great things and we expect to hear great things about you. I want to thank the Board of Education for this opportunity to let us speak on behalf of our students. And now I will turn the meeting back over to Mrs. Sassouni. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kozine, and thank you, Ms. Gunning and Ms. Anderson. And also thank you to the teachers who have helped raise our students up, as well as your families. Anyone who wants to stay with us tonight is more than welcome, and we'll pretend not to notice if you sign out. We're about to continue with the remainder of the meeting as scheduled. So the next item on the agenda tonight is the approval of minutes for the March 15th, 16th, 19th, and 20th meetings of the board. Are there any changes, comments, or concerns? Okay, there being none, the minutes are accepted as presented. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of the 2021-22 budget overview. We will turn that over and spotlight Mr. John Powell, our Assistant Superintendent for Business. Thank you in advance, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mrs. Sassouni. Good evening, viewers. If you are joining us for the first time, this is the third of 5 budget presentations where we present the 21-22 proposed budget for the community to ask questions on any of the items this budget is funding and where the sources of the funding for this budget are coming from. Slides 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are a repeat of what was included in our presentation on Tuesday, March 16th, 2021. They are only in tonight's presentation for those of you joining us for the first time. I will only briefly review the content of each. Slide 2 is our mission statement. Slide 3 are bullet points of what we have achieved and continue to strive for. Slide 4 is the budget development process by date. There will be 3 more sessions where a part of the discussion will be devoted to the 21-22 preliminary budget. Slide 5 are the overall proposed 21-22 budget figures. Our 4.47% budget to budget increase, our 2.25% tax levy to tax levy increase, which is under the 2.82% allowable tax levy limit. Slide 6 are our budget highlights. Slide 7 are budget challenges we faced in formulating the preliminary 21-22 budget. Slide 8 are the amounts and percentages of our 3-part budget presentation. We like to bring attention to the 80.38% amount this district budgets for program-related expenditures. Slide 9 are the material expenditure increases and decreases in the expenditures side of the budget. In some of our later slides, we will give you a 5 or 10 year history of the figures driving the 4.47% increase. Slide 10 are the material increases in our revenue categories. Remember, when we talk about the budget, it is 2 documents, the expenditure budget and the revenue budget. Slide 11 starts material that has not been presented to date. This slide shows personnel increases by full-time equivalent position that are driving the largest expenditure line items in our budget, which are personnel services. We are adding teachers, a fraction of a psychologist, a fraction of a social worker, teacher assistants, aides, and a member of the office staff. Slide 12 shows reductions in personnel we have made in the areas of general education, special education, the area of library and audiovisual, and transportation. Slide 13 is a graphical illustration of the number of students with disabilities we have educated over the past 10 years. As you can see, it has gone from 805 students in the 2011-2012 school year to 1,132 in the 2021 school year, or an increase of 327 students, or 40.62% over this period of time. Slide 14 is our overall student enrollment numbers for the past 10 years, which in total, even though there have been years of decreases, totals an overall increase over this period of 307 students, or 4.96%. Slide 15 shows the rise in budgeted security expenditures over the past 6 years. These expenditures are necessary, but they are also costly. Slide 16 are the number of workers' compensation cases or instances where an employee is injured on the job and is paid for the severity of the injury and the loss of income to a limit on account of that injury. The budgeted number for 21-22 is $1,500,000. Slide 17 are the employer contribution rates to both retirement systems employees of the school district are members of. Slide 18 are the material fringe benefit expenditure line items for the past 5 years and for the budgeted amount for the 21-22 school year. As you can see, health insurance is the largest line item in this category. ERS, which is Employees Retirement System, the Teachers Retirement System, Social Security and Medicare and health insurance are budgeted for 21-22 at $54,115,828 in total, or 21.46% of our 21-22 budget of $252,194,682. The chart below are the FICA or Social Security wage base for calendar year 2021. 6.2% of each employee's wages up to these amounts are paid into the FICA system. 1.45% of each employee's wages in total are payments towards Medicare. Slide 19 are the total budgeted payroll figures for 6 years. The figure for 21-22 is 52.60% of our proposed budget for 21-22. Adding that to the 21.46 for ERS, TRS, FICA, Medicare, and health insurance account for 74.06% of the proposed 21-22 budget. Slides 20, 21, 20, and 22 are what a taxpayer is getting academically for the amounts being budgeted and spent in this school district, which are very impressive. There are many, but I will highlight just a few. In the 2020 school year, which is the 19-20 school year, 73% of Great Neck graduates earned New York State Regents diplomas with advanced designations. In the 19-20 school year, our average SAT score was 1,325 to 1,350 out of a possible score of 1,600. Our ACT scores were 27 to 28 out of a possible score of 36. In the 2019-2020 school year, our guidance department processed more than 5,000 applications for roughly 620 12th graders. Our graduates continue to be accepted in all Ivy League schools and other prestigious institutions, such as the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Stanford University, the United States Military Academy, and the United States Naval Academy. We offer more than 25 advanced placement high school courses, and our students sit for more than 2,500 advanced placement examinations each year. 490 of our students were honored by the College Board as advanced placement scholars. I will leave the rest of our academic achievements for your reading pleasure. As you can see, your school tax dollars are being wisely spent and are achieving great results. Slide 23 is a reminder that the budget vote is on May 11th, 2021. Slide 24 are the election rules and regulations for voters, which I will leave for your reading. Slides 25 and 26 list the polling locations in the voting zones. Slide 27 is a link to assist you, the voter, to your poll location and to inform you if your registration is current. Slide 28 is the final slide in tonight's presentation and reminds you the importance of exercising your right to vote. At this time, I will answer any questions on the proposed 21-22 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. So my colleagues and I have had opportunity, of course, to meet with the cabinet and with you privately and also at the other meetings that you've mentioned, but just wanted to ask whether Ms. Perez or Mr. Shi have any comments before we open it up to the community.
I just have to say, Mr. Powell really refreshed his presentations, present our budget in a different views, holistically over years and in each category to help our community to understand the value of a public education. So I thank him for doing a great job.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Shi. So I think that we will now open it up in case there are any questions from the viewers. Ms. Langell, have any questions related to the budget been submitted?
Yes, we see one. The New York State budget reportedly spends record amount on education. Is Great Neck budget impacted?
Yes, we will, based on the numbers that were released last night and early this morning, we will receive a slight increase in our budgeted state aid. And what will happen is the amount of the increase in state aid, barring any unforeseen increases for the 21-22 budget on the expenditure side of the budget, will reduce our reliance upon fund balance and reserve. So there'll be a corresponding decrease in the amount of the appropriated reserves and fund balance based on the increase in state aid.
Thank you. Ms. Langell, are there any other questions submitted? I don't see any.
No further questions.
Okay, so as Mr. Powell said, there will be 2 more opportunities for budget presentations for the community to review the slides, to pose questions, etc. And we will bring those dates to the community's attention at the conclusion of the meeting. So the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you,
Dr.
Mrs. Berkowitz.
Prendergast.
Thank you, Mrs. Sassooni. Before we proceed with the superintendent's report, I believe there is one more question in the chat. If Mrs. Langell could read that, that way we won't overlook that.
Thank you.
question.
That was very quick typing and I didn't see it. Yes, please do.
Okay, it looks like we are preparing the elite and leaving poor people behind. This does not mean these students are going to contribute to society. It only perpetuates the rich getting richer. I think the school's leaving behind people of color and students with disabilities.
Okay, so thank you, Mrs. Langell. I'll begin with that question, and then certainly if any of our members of the cabinet would like to chime in, they can. I'm very proud of the work that the Great Neck Public School community and this Board of Education has presented and offered to all students in the Great Neck Public Schools. I can appreciate Mr. Powell's sharing of the accolades of our students and their successes, but I think it's also important to recognize the fact that we have a tremendous support team in place for not only our students with disabilities, but we have supports in place for our English language learners. We have supports in place for our students that live below the poverty line. Great Neck Public Schools is not a community of affluence. We also have children that are qualify for federal free and reduced lunch programs. And I really can say wholeheartedly that I'm so pleased that this district does so much work in preparing all of our students, not only for college, but also for the workforce. And for our viewers who may not realize this, Great Neck is one of the original school districts that actually adopted and supported a universal pre-K program so that we could support our youngest learners. Not to mention the fact that we have tremendous supports in play for academic intervention services, for math and ELA support, and we have study skills programs and study centers at the high school level as well, so that no child is left behind. And our teachers really do go above and beyond to make sure they receive the academic supports. And then we are the mental health staff and a support staff that also goes above and beyond with our social workers and psychologists so that we can not only meet the academic needs of our students, but the social and emotional needs as well.
And if I might just join in, the question makes a reference to leaving poor people behind and only benefiting those that are wealthy. Our AP courses are courses that are available to all students. It's not stratified. They are not stratified based on whether or not students are from one background or another. And because we have such a wide variety of AP courses, there is something in which just about every student, should they choose to, can find an opportunity to excel. In addition, we have college level courses that are offered in our schools that are connected with local universities. I want to say St. John's and Farmingdale come to mind off the top of my head. Beyond that, the programs that we offer, we have a slide that mentions for students who are of ENL background, and I won't comment that that's either richer or poorer. There's a wide variety, again, of backgrounds that are part of our ENL population. They have a great success in our school in terms of exiting from our ENL program, typically in less than 3 years. So what I would say is that we actually prepare all our students exceptionally well. And if you take a look at a couple of the other bullets on some of the slides, you'll see some examples of that as well.
And also, I like to make an editorial comment. I'm being a minority member of the school board, and my personal philosophy is the society is only strong as its weakest link. So I think it's our school district responsibility to not only raise the ceiling, but lift the floor at the same times. But also, I think as our board trustee will agree with me, diversity is the strength of this great community. And you can rest assured we will take care of all our kids.
And if I could just pick up on what Mr. Shi said, and we'll address the additional questions that just come through the chat. Obviously, the question is, as all questions are well taken, but it's important to clarify where the truth is. This district goes above and beyond, and Dr. Prendergast and Dr. Lendo have referenced only a smattering, really, of what's done for the students and the families. I mean, we now have, given the poverty rate, 2 clothing pantries in this district, which are affording with dignity clothing and items to students. And those are donations from the community, and they are, the pantries are being run voluntarily by staff. So it really does take a community, and I see our community rising to these challenges, including with the pre-K programs and through our academic supports that were referenced. So it's the right question, but it's also important to note the factual answers. Is there another question, Ms. Langell?
No further budget-related questions.
Okay, so as we said, we will revisit the dates where the remaining budget sessions will be held for the community. And of course, this Mr. Powell's presentation is also available on the district website for anyone who would like to review it there. So the next item on the agenda is still Dr. Prendergast's superintendent's report. It's all yours. Thank you, Dr. Prendergast.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. The annual day of commemoration, known as Holocaust Remembrance Day, honors the memory of the lives and the heroism of the 6 million Jewish people who died in the Holocaust between 1933 and 1935. Holocaust Remembrance Day began at sunset this evening and ends at sundown tomorrow night. While it might be painful to recall these horrific acts of violence, future generations must learn from the mistakes of the past so that the commitment of never again lives strongly in our hearts. Those who survived the Holocaust are an inspiration to us all, and as a society, we must reject acts of evil and hatred in order to prevent future atrocities from happening. The current event of hatred and violence against members of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, including vicious attacks on the elderly and vulnerable, is also heart-wrenching and absolutely unacceptable. The Great Neck Public School District is unwavering in its stance against racism and discrimination in all forms, and we remain committed to maintaining and ensuring a positive and inclusive learning environment where all students feel safe, included, and accepted. And we will continue to cultivate a culture in our schools through our academic, social, and emotional programs that embraces diversity and inclusion for everyone. I too am going to reference Don Ashkenazi. Many times he shared with us that the diversity of our community is our greatest strength as a school district. And in his memory, we will continue to work with our community partners to offer programs that support our students, celebrate diversity, and empower our students to be upstanders against injustice. Trustee Sassouni mentioned earlier that prior to the spring recess, Trustee Sassouni, Dr. Lando, and I attended the South Middle School ribbon cutting ceremony for their community closet. Similar to the Saddle Rock School, the community closet will support families in need, and I am so grateful to the South Middle School administration, the South Middle School social worker Yeti Park, English teacher Kristen Klein, and ENL teacher Liz Paperno for their efforts in supporting this worthwhile initiative in support of our most vulnerable populations. We are once again excited to acknowledge and announce that our school district will once again host an in-person summer enrichment, summer school, and summer recreation programs. Program brochures and registration will be available mid to late April, and they're going to include all of the changes that we have put into play to make sure that we keep everyone safe related to all of the guidelines in place for COVID. Parents did receive prior to the break from the Summer Recreation Department information about these programs. If you didn't check your emails, please do so. And I would also remind you to continue to watch your emails for upcoming information regarding registration dates. Locations for our summer enrichment and summer recreation programs are being determined based on the summer capital projects that will be scheduled throughout the district. And thank you, Trustee Sassouni. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Prendergast. So the next several items that will be on the agenda are policies that are under consideration. The chair of our policy committee is Mrs. Perez, and she will bring them up to our attention. Two of them are third readings for possible adoption this evening. Mrs. Perez. You're on mute.
See, I saw that, but I don't know why I was. I'm sorry. Good evening, Mrs. Sassouni, and thank you. For those of you who are in attendance for the first or second time, I try and say several times a year how our policies come to us on the policy committee. Sometimes the state has a new law that we have to put into policy for our district. Sometimes the New York State School Boards Association will recommend a new policy. And on an ongoing basis, we review some of the policies that have been on our books for a very long time and may not be current. So just so you know how they come to us, it's not out of thin air. The first policy for your consideration this evening is policy 0101, gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms. This is for a second reading. The policy governs the designation of all single occupancy bathrooms in the district as gender neutral. In order to be in compliance with New York state law, the policy was required to be in place by March 23rd, 2021. Therefore, it was conditionally adopted at the March 16th board meeting. In accordance with policy 2400, which is board policy development, it is being presented for a second reading for informational purposes this evening. Are there any questions or concerns from the board members? Thank you. Next policy for your consideration this evening is policy 1131, district-sponsored social media. This is a second reading. Policy defines the purpose of the district's social media presence as an information resource intended to highlight educational activities and academic accomplishments of the district, its students, and staff. As such, it is imperative that all those who engage with these platforms understand that they must do so respectfully and responsibly. The policy outlines inappropriate behaviors that could lead to cancellation of the privilege of participation, as well as other disciplinary actions. There have been no changes since its first reading on March 16th, and it is being submitted for the second of 3 readings this evening. No board action will be taken at this time, but I am welcome to any comments or concerns. Thank you. Policy 4010, comparability of schools. This is a third reading for possible adoption this evening. This policy was adopted originally in 1984 as a required part of an application for federal funding. Currently, the policy is only required for districts with more than one building on a grade span that is eligible for Title I funding under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. While this designation does not apply to our district schools, new language has been added to the policy to emphasize the district's ongoing commitment to educational equity. And this may be part of an answer to the question that was asked previously during the budget presentation. As such, a change of the policy title from comparability of schools to equivalence of schools is also being proposed. There have been no changes since its second reading on March 16th, and this policy is being submitted to you for a third reading and possible adoption. Are there any comments or questions?
I'd like to make a motion in favor of the policy.
Thank you. Do I hear any
So
names?
moved.
Thank
I
you
second.
very much.
We have quorum tonight. That's good. And the next policy, please, Ms. Perez.
This is the last one for tonight, policy 8505. The chart, this is one that has come around repeatedly, and we, just for the audience that may not have heard it, we have tried many different ways to resolve the outstanding balances of many people. These are not children who qualify for free or reduced lunch. These are children above that level. This revision addresses the ongoing issue of debt collection from families who have enrolled through My School Bucks, that's the program, to pay for student meals. As such, the policy has been amended to change the threshold for outstanding balances from $75 to $25 so that it will correlate with the value of the 5-meal negative balance requirement used for the determination of eligibility for free or reduced lunch. In addition, in the event of continued failure to replenish an outstanding balance, deterrents such as curtailment of a parent's electronic access to student records or a limitation of student participation in various school-sponsored events or activities may be considered. Restrictions will not be imposed on any student certified as eligible for free and or reduced lunch. As indicated in the policy's third paragraph, the district has always maintained a commitment to supporting families who may be facing temporary financial difficulty with regard to paying for student meals. There have been no changes since the second reading on March 16th, and with this revised policy, it is being submitted for a third reading and possible adoption. I just need to comment that since its first reading, there were several comments and changes by board members, and we have tried to work them in. And again, this may partially answer the question that the person was asking during the budget consultation about the poorer children. So on that case, if there are no comments, do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved. Second,
second.
anyone?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you so
second.
much. Thank you, and thank you to the budget. Thank you to the policy committee, to Dr. Prendergast and Barbara Berkowitz. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Perez.
And Mr. Suni, can I just make a quick comment
Please.
regarding our food service programs? I was made aware, and I actually went to our Phipps building and I saw our food service department during last year's pandemics keep providing meals to our students, especially those in needs. This policy is really, not targeted for those students who are in needs, and we will take everything into consideration. But I think we also want to make sure the school meal is being paid by our parents' bodies. So thank you for cooperating with our school district.
Thank you very much. The next items on the agenda, items 3G through L. I'm just going to move on a consent agenda. So those are up for consideration. Do I have a motion to accept
Moved.
items 3G through L?
So moved.
A second? A third? Here we are. Next. Okay. The next items are items 3M and N. Can I have a motion to in support of those M and N?
Yes, so moved, and thank you so much for the donations to those.
Yes, we
people.
appreciate those donations to JFK and to South Middle. And the next item on the agenda is item 3O, which establishes an award at North High School.
So move.
Second.
Okay, and myself. So again, we do have quorum tonight. And the next item on the agenda is item 3P, which is a resolution that I would like to read in its entirety. This is regarding a student appeal. Be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Great Neck Union Free School District hereby denies the appeal from the March 12th, 2021 decision of the Superintendent of Schools, upholding the suspension of student ID number F0214. Is there a second for this denial?
Second.
Mr. Shi?
So move.
There are no nays. The appeal is denied. All right, the next item on the agenda is item FA. Do I have a motion to accept?
So move.
So moved.
Any nays? No. The next items are items 5A through C. Is there a motion to accept?
So move.
Second.
Great, no nays. Item 5D, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
So move.
Those reports are accepted as presented. Item 5E, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
So move.
No nays. And item 5F, is there a motion to accept?
So move.
No nays. Okay, that report is also accepted as presented. Item 6A and B, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
So move.
No nays. And item 7, 1A through G, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
So move.
No nays. And item 7, 2A through G,
So
So
move.
moved.
no nays. All right, I think we are now up to item 8 on the agenda, which is open time. Do we have any comments, Ms. Langell, from the community to address?
Yes, we did receive one question in advance.
Oh, that's correct. Thank you for the reminder. I do have it here. All right, so I will read the question as submitted. Now that the CDC has revised the social distance requirements in schools to 3 feet, can our secondary schools fit all of our students in person and still comply with the 3 feet spacing? If not, what percentage of students can be accommodated under the revised guidelines? Based on expected enrollment for the 2021-22 school year, would all secondary school students be allowed in school every day next year if there is still 3 feet social distancing required? Dr. Prendergast and Dr. Hickey, I believe you're the point people in whichever order that you prefer.
Okay, Dr. Hickey, I'll let you start as our COVID coordinator, and then I'll certainly chime in if there's anything else left to add.
Yeah, I'll jump in. At this point, we have not made any decisions as to what next year will look like. We're exploring what 3 feet would look like. We're exploring what no social distancing would look like. We don't automatically follow everything that the CDC recommends. When the CDC makes a recommendation, we consult with the Nassau County Department of Health. We look at the numbers in the district, we look at the infection rate in the district, and it's very specific to how we are doing in Great Neck, and then we make a decision as to how we're going to open our schools. Right now, I do anticipate that we will have something that looks different than we have right now, but we don't have all the specifics and the details. We did start a few weeks ago. I actually asked the head of facilities to start to look at the different buildings and what 3 foot social distancing would look like. So he is working on that now, and he's looking at the different classrooms in the different buildings. So we are preparing for different options, but we have not made any specific decisions as of yet.
Thank you, Dr. Hickey. And I think it's important also for the community to understand, as Dr. Hickey pointed out, while the CDC certainly does put out recommendations, we follow the New York State and the Nassau County Department of Health recommendations, as well as the guidelines from the New York State Education Department. So we still are awaiting specific guidelines from the Department of Health, which we have not received, although I am under the impression that we will be hearing something shortly from the governor's office, but that remains to be seen. I'm going to wait. We have nothing definitive at this time. And as Dr. Hickey correctly pointed out, people have to understand it's not as clean as one would think, because depending on the age of our buildings and the square footage of each of the classrooms, some classrooms can handle more children within a 3 foot setting than others. And I also need to be mindful of the fact of the comfortability level of families who are willing to bring their children back to school. And even if we can fit children into a 3 foot social distancing space, we still have to keep in mind, as Dr. Hickey mentioned, that we're still living in a pandemic, although we're appreciative of the fact that more people are becoming vaccinated. But the reality is, if someone does test positive, we still have to follow the current guidelines from the Nassau County Department of Health with regards to contact tracing. And contact tracing means that we have to look at 6 feet of social distancing, which in theory means in a 3 foot social distancing structure and 6 feet of social distancing for contact tracing, we could conceivably have more children placed on quarantine if we move forward with 3 foot social distancing than we do right now, because we'll simply capture more students within that 6 foot radius. That being said, we're all anxious to see schools come back to normal and to have more children return to in-person instruction. We certainly want to, and we have always paid attention to the academic needs of our children and looking at social and emotional needs as well. And we are going to wait and see. For those of you who received my emails, in the last 2 days, we've had to report 25 COVID cases. And just being mindful of contact tracing and the rates of infection, we're going to be cautiously optimistic, but we're also mindful that we might very well see additional positivity rates over the next several days based on what may or may not have transpired during the spring recess. So we're going to be looking at several factors as we continue to move forward in looking at what we can do to further reopen schools for in-person instruction. But make no mistake, we have worked so very hard and are so proud of what we've accomplished thus far. And as I had mentioned at a previous meeting, no other school district has the programs that we have in place to accommodate the needs of every child. And I do want to thank the Board of Education for their support, because it was not an inexpensive proposal that we put forward in terms of supporting the needs of our 6,800 students. And right now we are very proud to be able to say that we were able to accommodate the needs of every single child and every single family, whether it was full-time remote, whether it was a hybrid model at the elementary level, whether it was looking at our most neediest of special needs children, as well as looking at a completely unique ERP program at the elementary levels. So we're going to continue to do our due diligence to make sure that we serve the needs of our children well, but we're going to do it very thoughtfully. And one last note I do want to mention, because I know people say to me, well, in other districts, they've started to bring children back to school. And we're aware of that fact. They had elementary children on a hybrid model where we don't have that. And I do want to make note, well, it's not something you would read in the local media. They have seen a much higher rate of students being quarantined based on infection rates. So we're being mindful of that as well, because we want to make sure that we continue to keep our children and staff safe and to continue to offer a high quality academic program here in the Great Neck Public Schools, which is what our parents expect and our children deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prendergast. And I just wanted to say ERP stands for Elementary Remote Program, which is distinctively Great Neck. And so I just wanted to explicate that for anybody listening who didn't know, because that's just so unique to Great Neck. And I think we're all so proud of that offering and how well received it's been.
Yes, and Mrs. Sassoni, I do see one other question, which I could just
Yes,
add
please.
to the conversation.
Yes.
You know, now that the weather is getting nicer, finally we're seeing spring weather, and that's going to give all of our schools an opportunity to bring children outdoors more frequently. In the cold winter months, it was hard to bring children outside, but I have personally witnessed our elementary children going outside for academic read alouds and opportunities to work with their teachers, which is beautiful to see. And we have the risers. If many of you recall, we did purchase those low rise risers for all of our schools so that children could have an opportunity to sit comfortably outside while still maintaining social distancing. And you know, some people have asked about the notions of tents, but we have to follow guidelines by the New York State Education Department and their Office of Facilities. And any type of outdoor structure has to be approved. So it's not as simple as just installing a tent that we would typically have at an outdoor function. As a school district, we have to be very mindful of safety regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prendergast. So the next item on the agenda is board discussion. I'll go first. I just want to thank my colleagues for entrusting me with this obligation tonight. And I also want to wish Mrs. Berkowitz a quick recovery. And is there any other board discussion to be had? Okay, there being none, I will just remind us that we have some more meetings coming up. There will be a meeting on Tuesday, April 13th. Once again, a student recognition at North High, as well as an official public hearing and adoption of our budget. And on Tuesday, April 20th, a public action meeting. And on Wednesday, April 28th, South Middle School student recognition and annual budget hearing. As well, everyone should be reminded that we have successfully changed our date for our budget election to May 11th, 1 week before other districts. Please make a note of it and plan to vote. And I'm open to the motion to adjourn.
Mr. Sony, I think there
Yes.
may be one more questions that people ask about. Do you expect the summer program to be adapted to incorporate more academic or remedial help to make up for the loss of this year?
Thank
Perhaps
you.
incorporate.
Oh, there it is. That's right, Jeff. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Shi. There's another question there.
Yes.
Dr. Prendergast, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier in our superintendent's report, we are so excited to finally be able to continue to offer our summer school, our summer enrichment, and our summer recreation program for all students, K through 12. And yes, as part of our enrichment program, we always offer academic intervention services as well as enrichment opportunities for students with disabilities, our English language learners, our general education students. Really, if anyone were to take an opportunity to look at the programs that are offered on our website, you will see there is something for everyone. And we are being very mindful for those children who might need academic supports, as we always do. Those programs have always been offered and will continue to be offered based on the needs of our children.
And I believe I've already seen that on social media and as well in the local papers. So that's out for the community's consideration.
Terrific.
All right, so are there any other questions or comments or board discussion?
No.
All right, so dare I
Good
say I
job.
am once again open to the motion.
So moved.
Okay, so move.
All right, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good
Night.
night.